All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to my channel. I'm Lorena Creole, and this is an Audience with the Queen podcast. And joining me, I'm very excited he's on the show, is Alan Ing of Film Threat. How are
Hi,
you?
Reina. Good to be here.
Ah,
I've
well,
been uh,
I glad to
I've been
have you.
following your theme park live cast the last few weeks. Uh,
Oh,
yeah, and especially the Splash Mountain one, the final ride.
that one, you know what? In a way, I should have stayed home, and this is why. I had like the worst. My allergies are so bad; they're
Oh
like
no!
awful. When I lived in LA, I was constantly going to get shots. If the Santa Ana wind shifted,
Oh yeah,
I got sick. It's like the smog layer. I got sick. It was just a mess. But here, it's like I don't know if the mold just like exploded,
oh
but I was just not feeling all that great, and you can hear, like, in the audio, I'm feel kinda congested, but I'm just like, "I have to go
yeah.
Splash Mountain." I'm like, "I'm gonna go
It's history. You got to do it.
Saturday. It's history, I gotta go. There's no way I'm gonna go there Sunday because I can deal with people, but I can't deal with people, at least that many people that were gonna go. So I went and it was a blast.
Yeah,
So I'm really glad folks got to enjoy that because it was very tough. That was like a piece of history for me. And then being there with all the people
hmm
who were there and getting pictures and are talking about what they liked about it. So
yeah. Because I'd ridden the Disneyland Splash Mountain during its soft opening, so maybe about a week before its official open,
oh
and
wow.
yeah, and it was even then I fell in love with the ride. And I think we talked about on your live cast, but they took all the animals from America Sings,
Hmm.
which was another attraction that I really loved, and brought it over to Splash Mountain. So it was kind of a double nostalgia then. And unfortunately, I haven't been on it since, or I haven't been on it in the last few years.
Hmm.
So I was kind of living those last few moments with you
Uh,
last week.
but I'm glad you did. I mean, here, Splash Mountain, besides just kind of like Disney history to me, and I can't. It's a shame I can't really remember when, but it was always Space Mountain,
Hmm.
Thunder Mountain, and Splash Mountain. And Splash Mountain in the summer, that's the one you did because it's like 100
Yeah.
degrees in Florida in the hot summer, and everyone is like waiting to get on Splash Mountain. You
Hmm.
sit there, you wait for people to drop down the briar patch, and you scream at them, and you clap when they come around the corner. It's such a fun attraction. The
Yeah.
animatronics, the music, um, just like all of it. It's one of those rides that at one time made me want to become eventually an Imagineer. Not so
Hmm.
much now, but back then I was just amazed at just how the animatronics worked, and the music and the story and the
Hmm.
mechanics of the ride, and just all of that. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, that was the magic of Disneyland when I was a kid. It was all the animatronics, Country Bear Jamboree, at that time, America Sings, the Haunted Mansion. I mean, it was just the whole robotics to it all, and then the storytelling and the costuming. It was like, that was Disneyland has always been kind of my playground for a very long time, and yeah, I don't know. Ever since the pandemic, I'm like, I don't have a lot of desire to go back there. I'm pretty sure I will if
hmm.
I'm pretty sure I will if a lot of money came my way, like a lot of money. But I'm kind of like fairly content right now. I think I do want to do Universal. I haven't been to Universal in maybe 10 years, and so I
Hmm.
think that's kind of my next goal, I guess.
Next thing.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, I mean, like I was at Universal yesterday. I hadn't been in like a month, and I kind of felt like I was going through withdrawal because I hadn't been
Uh,
in about a month or so, because it's cheaper than Disney.
yeah.
It seems more plugged into what customers want, as opposed to Disney. And with Epic Universe
Hmm.
coming and all the stuff they have going on in the park, it is just amazing. Meanwhile, who knows if Tron is actually going to open when they say it's going to in
Oh, are there
April.
delays or something?
It's so anticlimactic right now. I think they announced it in 2017,
Uh-huh.
and of course, the pandemic supposedly caused issues with construction, but yet Universal was able to construct the Velocicoaster and get it
Yeah.
up and running within a year. And it was the worst kept secret because everyone's like, I can see you working on it. We can see the trains running, and then boom, it opened, and they're
Yeah.
still trying to figure out what's going on with Tron. And their big reveal on Instagram was, oh, guess what? There's going to be double-sided lockers. I'm like, they already have that at the Velocicoaster. I mean, is this supposed to be, is this supposed to be news? And
Yeah.
it's a shame because Disney used to be like this absolutely magical,
Yeah.
place, and now it's really not so much. So, since you go to Disneyland or did for quite some time, what got you hooked on Disney?
Well, I'd always been hooked on Disney. I think like my first movie was Mary Poppins. I think weirdly, Pete's Dragon was another film that kind of struck a chord with me when it came out in theaters.
Mhm.
Um, I was just looking at some old family photos, and invariably it was the trip to Disneyland that would pop up every year. And so we'd always been going. And then I mentioned earlier that when they first did the $99 annual pass,
Mhm.
that's my start of my annual pass holder days at Disneyland, and that went probably close to around 15 to 20 years, where I was an annual pass holder. Yeah, I spent a lot of money there, and and I'll be honest, the early years, those first 10 years, it
Mhm.
was fun to be a pass holder. Um, Disney did some amazing parties for pass holders that the current ones don't even come close to. Uh,
Hmm.
and So it was a lot of fun. And near the end, it just felt like I was just shoving money to Disney. Spending my time in lines, going to the park. It'd take you half an hour to park your car and get into Disneyland.
Mhm.
Um, and then my daughter was growing up. She had kind of outgrown. Well, she was growing into roller coasters, and it was at that
Ah.
point where we said, "Well, Knott's Berry Farm has a lot of roller coasters. I think it's time to pay a lot less money and uh,
Mhm.
and start going to Knott's Berry Farm on a regular basis." And that's kind of how the transition away from Disneyland occurred in our family. So
That's wow.
yeah,
That's because you bring up a good point when it comes to coasters, because I was going to say, has your daughter been to Six Flags Magic Mountain? Because
yeah,
to
she
me,
hasn't.
she hasn't.
With the way we're situated, Six Flags is a good hour drive out to it's a long drive, and
Ah.
and during traffic and rush hour, it's a miserable drive. And the same thing is with Universal. It's in the heart of Hollywood, and
Mhm.
it's a chore to get there as well. So that's why we never seriously considered annual passes to Universal Studios. And also, the Hollywood one is a lot smaller than the Orlando park, and so there's some limitations there. But I think we do want to do Super Nintendo World, and my daughter definitely wants to do Harry Potter Land or whatever they're calling that.
Yeah, they call it the Wizarding World of Harry Potter.
Okay.
It's kind of it's kind of funny with that because when it opened in Orlando, it opened in the Islands of Adventure
Hmm.
portion of Universal. Because it's funny, I'd been to the one in Hollywood. I would
Yeah.
always have to commute from like the valley into
Yeah.
Culver City,
Well, so you
and
know the drive.
I know, yeah, oh, yeah, the grind is real. Oh my goodness, I'm just like, I don't want to have to go. Do I have to leave the valley to go into the LA base, and I don't want to.
Yeah.
If any chance I don't want to. If I have to be stuck on the 101 because my dentist was in, of all places,
Oh,
Hollywood, I'm like, I don't want to drive on the 101 or whatever. But
yeah.
I remember going to Universal Hollywood. I'm like, man, this is like super tiny because in Orlando we have so much space. So they have the Studios Park and they have the Islands of Adventure Park. And
Hmm.
Islands of Adventure was when they put the first Wizarding World of Harry Potter,
Yeah.
which is like Hogsmeade and Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey and Hagrid's and all of that. And then they built Diagon Alley over in the
Uh-huh.
studios, and it's connected by the Hogwarts Express.
Yeah.
And it's just,
Is
well,
it a fun
one,
train ride at least?
oh gosh, yeah. It's just not only is it a fun train ride, everybody is trying to get on that darn train to keep the immersion when you go from
Yeah.
one part to the other part. It is literally like you're in the movie.
Yeah.
It's incredible. If I show video for King's Cross Station when I'm doing live streams, people from the UK are like, I cannot believe this is in Orlando because it dead on
Mhm.
looks like you're in London. And the worst thing about Harry Potter, it's crowded full of people
Wow.
having a great time and spending a lot of money and happy to do so.
Yeah. At least they're not shoving you into a cargo truck and driving you from one park to the next.
Funny you should mention that. Because my thing every time I drive onto Disney property and I'm
Oh,
going like over towards the studios, I always say, let's see how many tumbleweeds are over at the Galactic Star Cruiser because they have like the week. I called it the Us Bus because that little like conversion van that they hauled people in. And I guess they stopped using it because I have never seen it parked out
oh
there. It
man.
is the saddest looking thing that I've ever seen.
Yeah, I remember when they announced and described it at not the last D23, but the one before that. I just kept thinking to myself, this is going to fail, and it's going to fail spectacularly. And they didn't even announce the price at that point. But it was like, this is for people who cosplay, who enjoy cosplay, and there's nothing wrong with people who cosplay or enjoy doing it. But the problem is the number is so low, and that you can't sustain an attraction like that. And it's not like you could just sit back and watch things happen. You're forced to kind of participate, and not everybody wants to do that. There's not enough people in the world who want to do that in order to keep this park, this idea running. And I think they're running into that problem now to the point where they can't they can't get people in there, not even for what I guess they're doing dinner theater there now.
They're gonna have to because, man, I
Yeah.
had a better time at medieval times for much less money
Hmm.
than I would want to spend at the Galactic Star Cruiser. Because I know for me, when I first heard it announced, I'm like, "Oh, this is gonna be cool. So there's gonna be a Star Wars hotel, right?"
Yeah.
And it's probably I don't know, shuttle, tunnel, whatever it is that you want to do to get into Galaxy's Edge. It was probably like, hey, stamp your passport, you go in, and there's
Yeah.
probably stormtroopers walking around making sure you're in order and stuff like that. I'm like, that'd be cool to kind of
Yeah.
be able to go back and forth, kind of like how at California Adventure, if you stay in the Grand California, and how that has its own entry into California Adventure. So I was like,
Hmm.
oh, cool. It'd be something like that. Be great. I could dress up, not dress up, whatever. It's just basically Star Wars themed hotel.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, that'll work. It's probably priced like the Polynesian or something like that. Yeah, no big deal. Get to go to Mos Eisley Cantina, do all this cool stuff. Maybe Darth Vader will find me. I don't know. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, it'd be
There's
cool. I'd
characters
pay for
walking
that.
around,
That because
get pictures
that's
with them.
Yeah, that's kind of like what you would expect as a Star Wars fan. Like, okay, I'll be able to do that. It'll be like a Star Wars convention 24/7.
Yeah.
Kind of plan of like that. But I agree with you. The way that it was priced,
Yeah.
it's not one, not something that people have a lot of money to do.
Hmm.
Two, if you're expecting to get it from the locals here, that's not going to happen. And three, it's a very extroverted
Yeah.
type of experience. I If I'm spending that kind of money, leave me the heck alone unless I ask you for what I want. It's very much like a cruise ship, because I've done the Disney cruises, which are very nice. I can't say enough about how great they are. But
Yeah.
I don't like the idea of eating with people I don't know. I
Mhm.
don't like do this, there's this going on, there's that going on. I'm like, I just want to go to my stateroom and just hang out. Hang out.
Yeah.
Me, I'll talk to my cabin steward if I want something, but that's just not the experience, for me.
Mm.
And I think eventually it's going to wind up being a day attraction, which is a
Yeah.
shame
Well,
because there's so much they could have done with it.
yeah, I mean, you brought it up. It should have been a Star Wars hotel. But the problem now is it's not built like a hotel. And they could have easily, it could have been just a hotel in line with all the other hotels on the Disney resort, and had fun. You could have dinner shows there, and
Hmm.
you could do. You would definitely bring in a lot more people, and you could sell the costumes. You could encourage people to dress up when they're there, and but yeah, but like you said, the price, along with the small number of people who would actually want to do that kind of adventure, uh, it's an unsustainable business model, and it amazes me that no one saw that no one had, and this is the biggest problem with Disney executives right now, is they don't understand their customers anymore, and they don't understand how much money they don't have. They overestimate what an adventure might be and how much we could pay for it,
Hmm.
and clearly they don't. The things I loved about Disney when I was a kid, I don't think they have a clue as to what that is, because they're not producing that stuff anymore. And it's a shame, because I've given my life to Disney, a lot of my money to Disney, and it's like I don't recognize this company anymore.
I like wholeheartedly agree with you. Because I was one where I got hooked on Disney. Like I would watch it on television.
Hmm.
My mother would tell me they lived like in the middle of nowhere in rural Florida, and they would watch The Wonderful World of Disney. And when they found out that Walt Disney was building a park 2 hours from where they lived,
Yeah.
they told it was like the best thing that ever happened. I got like the books that I learned to read, reading like Disney Golden books, collected all
Hmm.
that stuff. My parents would save for like a year to go. It's like it wasn't not doable, but it was doable enough that when you went, at least you got the value for it,
Hmm.
when you went. And even when I was older, I'd go for spring break with friends from college. We would, all like pile in one hotel room. We still pretty much got our money's worth.
Yeah.
It's like we had a great time at the parks. We could find, stuff to do. We got like student rates to go in, and you could have a really good time with the
Hmm.
Disney magic. I mean, I remember they would have like Goofy out during spring break. It was like a big deal. And they'd have the
Yeah.
Disney characters dressed up in like mascot costumes and stuff. And they would just hang out with you, take pictures with you. It was just so much
Yeah.
magic built in to that.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I have to tell you, I went to Disney World not too long after, probably in my late 20s. That was the first time I went to Disney World. And even then, it was magical. I had so much fun. Um, like Horizons was open. I got to ride that.
mhm.
The Pavilion of Health. That was kind of fun. Kind of. I went to the original Disney Institute, which was basically Disney Adult Fantasy Camp.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I went there for a week. That was the most fun I ever had at Disney, because of all the experiences you got to do, and
Mhm.
it was expensive, but I was more than willing to pay for it at that time. And there was just in the late 90s, 2000s, it was fun to be at those parks, and the experiences you got, and I feel like I'm the lucky one who got to experience all that, even in my adulthood at that time.
Mhm.
yeah. But that, yeah, that the Disney Institute was incredible.
Man, I had always wanted to do that. It's like I would see all these things with the Disney Institute. I'm like, oh, that'd be great to
Yeah,
finally go and do that.
yeah. There was oh yeah, like there was a animator class taught by one of the Disney animators over at MGM Studios, and you got to actually do like a 3 second cartoon. That was your class for the day. Um,
Oh.
there was a class I took. It was nature photography, and so you
Hmm.
show up, and they would hand you a $3,000 bag of camera equipment and some film, and then take you over to Discovery Island, and they would teach you, how to set up your shots, how to work a camera,
Hmm.
how to compose, and then we spent 2 hours at Discovery Island just taking pictures, and having someone to talk to walk you through it, and then there was the agricultural tour of Epcot. So
You went in the
from
land
eight.
pavilion.
No, it was mostly, yeah. Part of it was, it ended in the land, but it was mostly going through World Showcase when it was closed. Because World Showcase opened later in the day,
Yeah, yeah.
so we got to walk through World Showcase without a crowd, and then the gardeners there, the horticulturalists, would just explain, how, just the design of each land, and it's like, okay, now I have the gardening bug. This is the magic that was Disneyland at that, or Disney World at that time.
Hmm.
Yeah, and then yeah, and then like even the toys. Here, let me grab it over here. Yeah, this was the Fozzie Bear doll you bought at Muppet Vision. I mean, look how big this is. That's what they were selling when it first opened. Yeah,
Hmm.
try to find Fozzie Bear that big now.
You can't even go to that shop anymore. I
Mhm.
remember I took a trip with my sister, and we were at Disney. One of our favorite things to do is after we get out of Muppet Vision, go to the Muppet gift shop because they had like
Yeah.
sight gags everywhere. Don't look here, don't touch this. They'd have Electric Mayhem t-shirts, they would have comics, they would have just all of this stuff. And like you were saying with the plushes, they were just like big. I mean, you paid a premium, but you got what you paid for. It was
Hmm.
just so detailed
Oh yeah.
and original. Well, that shop went away,
Hmm.
and I'm just like, you must be really stupid. Who at Disney decided to shut that down? Because it was one of the busiest places
Yeah.
that you would go right after you got out of Muppet Vision.
Yeah. Is it still there? Is Muppet Vision still there?
It is still
Okay.
there. I think they updated the film. When I say updated, I mean because that show runs so continuously,
Yeah.
you could see the film kind of
They
kind
improved
of
the print. Yeah.
yeah, they improved the print on that. So yeah, that is still there.
Yeah.
It is still a crowd pleaser.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
and
the
and let's
show.
not forget that it's Jim Henson's last Muppet movie. You know, and to me, it's probably the third best Muppet movie there is. I go with the first Muppet movie,
Mhm.
Muppet Christmas Carol, and then this one.
Oh,
Yeah.
man. Muppet Christmas Carol, we did a watch party of that in December. I'm just like, that one, it's
Hmm.
not Christmas unless I've seen Die Hard, number
Hmm.
one, and then a Muppet Christmas Carol. I love both of those.
Yeah. I mean the music alone. I mean, yeah, it's my favorite Christmas Carol movie. Absolutely.
Hmm. It's great. But yeah, I mean, it's a shame that I think in a way Disney believes that they can't be knocked off as king of the mountain, so to speak.
Hmm.
And I tell people it's just like, you go to Universal, people can't get out of the car fast enough. And then they get there, they can't wait to get to whatever park it is that they're going in. Like I was telling someone, I said, here's the difference. It's like you go to Universal, they have all these kiosks full of nothing but anime swag. And yeah, they're always trying to get my money.
Hmm.
I'm just like, they do not have this at Disney, except in the Japan Pavilion. Everybody knows about that because everybody
Yeah.
goes over there and crawls over everything. But at Universal, they have that between Harry Potter and now they had the deal. They made the deal with Pokemon. Then they opened up Super Nintendo World in Japan and
Yeah.
then over in Hollywood. And every time I leave Universal Orlando, I go by the site for Epic Universe. So I'm seeing where they're building like the Donkey Kong coaster
Hmm.
and the Yoshi ride and all of that. People are just absolutely excited about it. And
Yeah.
even in the studios where they're doing, well, they got rid of Shrek 4D. Kind of sad to see that one go. That was kind of fun. But now they're updating it with Minions. And it's just insane. That park, I've never seen that park so
Yeah.
crowded as it has been
Yeah. I
of
I
late.
do enjoy. I mean, it's weird, but we had planned a Disney World trip that was supposed to that we were supposed to go during the first year of the pandemic, so that got canceled.
Hmm.
But I remember looking at the pricing of it and realizing, from airfare, hotel, food, and tickets, the tickets comprised over half of the budget of that trip.
Hmm.
And we've talked about that if we go to Florida again, it'd be weird, but we may just do it Universal and skip Disney altogether, which is almost unthinkable. That we would even consider that, but now we are. And I mean, I tell you, the few times I've been to Islands of Adventure, it was a lot of fun, and I have to say the Spider-Man ride is probably my favorite theme park ride
It
ever.
is
Yeah,
awesome. I can't believe after all these years, it's still like one of the coolest attractions
yeah,
to go to, especially
and then
considering you see cameos of like Stan Lee and you actually hear his
yeah,
voice at the end.
and then the kind of the letdown when I saw the description. I haven't even been to Avengers Campus yet, but it's like, is that is this really the Spider-Man ride? Is it basically a Connect ride, your Xbox Connect, and you
Pretty
know,
much.
yeah, it's like, okay, they don't get it anymore.
No, as a matter of fact, they don't get it so bad that Universal Orlando trolled them
Oh yeah,
and said, "We still have the best, the best Spider-Man ride." Just I due to some kind of licensing agreement east of the Mississippi,
yeah,
so long as Universal is actively using the Marvel license,
hmm,
they can do all of that. So Marvel Superhero Island is flipping amazing. It is like
yeah,
straight. I didn't understand what this was. People had to tell me because I was a how would I say a selective comic book
hmm,
reader. It's like, okay, unless it's X-Men, unless it's GI Joe, Spider-Man if he's in the black costume, I'll get that. But I didn't really know like all the eras and everything. So I'm doing a live stream from there like a couple months ago.
yeah,
And someone says, "That looks like Silver Age Marvel." I said, "What is that? Explain to me what that is." And then people were telling me. So
yeah,
I'm like, "Okay, I don't get it. All right, we'll just go in the shops and look around." Like the arcade,
hmm,
Kingpin's arcade. They even have like, his throne in there. I had no idea what the heck that was. I said, "Why is there an arcade in the middle of Marvelville?" And they said that's why, because of Kingpin and they had like all the villains portraits that are up there were up there. Fantastic Four mobile they had there. Um, I can't even get into the collector's shop with the kind
yeah,
of stuff that was in there. I'm just
yeah.
like my bank account is yelling at me right now with
Well,
just like
and
all the gear.
they have the X-Men at Islands of Adventure. I mean, I'm an X-Men guy. That was my first comic book, X-Men, and I'd followed it for the longest time. And and to realize, yeah, we maybe one day we'll get it at Disneyland, but they're gonna screw it up. I know it. I absolutely know it. They're gonna
It's like,
ruin Fantastic Four. They're gonna ruin X-Men.
oh, I can't. I said it's a shame because because some people are just like, "Oh, well, you're, whatever, give it a chance." I'm like, "No, I don't think you understand. people have been reading these comic books for years. Granted, I had my little niche of comics. I was always reading X-Men and G.I. Joe. Wolverine was
Mhm.
my favorite X-Men character. Storm will be second, but Wolverine was my favorite. I used to read that religiously. It's just like, unless you understand the comics, or even if you don't, and you're
Mhm.
just like, okay, I don't know, but I need some people who do, so you can let me know what I'm doing when I'm coming up with these movies and these properties. And it just seems like Disney just does not care, which is a
Yeah.
shame, because it's like you have this built-in base ready to give you money.
Mhm. Yeah.
They don't do it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. That's what they do is they buy IPs and then they ruin them. They ruined the Muppets. I kind of was reluctant about Disney buying it the second time, and
Hmm.
you know, I just like you know, my child. Like I said, I just don't recognize the company anymore. You know,
Did you see the new what was it? I think when they came out with the new Muppet Show, and I roasted that so bad.
I
It was,
I didn't even watch it. I couldn't. I mean,
don't, don't. Well,
you know, like
I will put it
Muppets
to you
Tonight
like this.
was the first big disappointment.
Yes, that
And
was
then yeah, and then the Muppets one, I didn't really watch it. Uh,
the new
no,
Muppet movie.
yeah,
Yeah, that
the
was.
Muppets, Disney's The Muppets were good, was good, and I was okay with Most Wanted. You know, that
Hmm.
was more of a cameo fest, if
Hmm.
anything. But yeah, I, it, you know, they get it right sometimes, and then they don't get it right.
Yeah, it's with the new show. It's just like I tell people, don't watch it. The only part you should watch is the shorts that have Bunsen Honeydew and Beaker. Those were funny. I said that
Yeah.
should have been the entire show, because all of them were hysterical. I mean, even Beaker getting jealous of like this 90s style computer,
Mhm.
because it was talking about all this stuff that it could do. And well, Beaker wound up sabotaging it because he did not want it around anymore. But it made complete and total sense. The I was surprised. The Muppet Haunted Mansion one was surprisingly good.
Okay,
I was worried. I was just like, I can't believe that was actually good. I don't know
okay.
what happened.
Yeah, I don't know why I haven't seen that one, but I've heard good things about it, so I'll definitely have to check it out. Yeah, just my Muppet moment was the first D23 ever. There was a Muppet panel because I think they had just bought the Muppets at that point,
Hmm.
and like they were talking about putting the whatnot shops at Disneyland, so you can make your own Muppet. So they were doing a lot of dreaming at this thing, but
Uh-huh.
and then at the end of the session they go, "Hey, if you stick around, you can meet Gonzo, Fozzie, and Pepe." I was like, "Oh well, I'm doing that."
Yeah.
And so about 45 minutes there I was getting a picture with the Gonzo, Fozzie, and Pepe, and you actually got to talk to them for a little bit, and so it was like, wow, I just completed my bucket list right now.
Now, how was that situation
Oh, it
kind
was
of?
amazing. Again, you know, that first D23 they still cared about fans,
Yeah.
and they, I mean, the fact that you could, I mean, what it was if you want the technicals, it was just kind of a black drop. Uh, the three actual Muppet performers who did, you know, Dave Goles, I forgot who was doing Fozzie at the time, not Frank
Hmm.
Oz, and then Pepe. You know, they're just lying on their backs, and they were you know, they were working the puppets, talking to you, and you got your picture. I mean that, you know, what, when are you gonna ever get that opportunity ever again?
I for me, especially when it comes to the Muppets were such a fundamental part of my preschool education that
Yeah.
it's not even funny. I mean, my parents couldn't afford to send me to preschool, and I was driving them nuts because I kept wanting to try to read everything. And then you had PBS and a little show called Sesame Street.
Yeah.
And I would watch that over and over and over again, would drive my parents nuts. However, I learned a whole lot of stuff.
Hmm.
watching, that show. So when they came up with the Muppet Show and you got to see, the crossover with Kermit and everything,
Yeah.
so many of, especially like from our generation, there's like that bridge. So to be able to like see one of the Muppets in person, we know there's a person behind there,
Yeah.
working the puppet, but it's like it doesn't, it doesn't matter. It's just to be able to interact with it and to kind of have, that moment from when you were a kid. It's just
Hmm.
it's something else.
Oh yeah. I mean, I watched the Muppet Show when it was right before 60 Minutes on CBS, and every week we were glued to the television. It was Dad, get dinner done early because we're watching the Muppet.
That is one of my favorite DVDs, and
Yeah.
my nieces and nephews, they're like under the age of 10. They think it's one of the funniest things
Yeah,
they've
my
ever
daughter
seen.
didn't have the same reaction. It was like A is like, who are these celebrities? Who is Gene Kelly? Who is Anthony Newley?
Mhm. Like, who
You know,
is Ruth Buzzy? Who
yeah.
followed she followed me on Twitter when I just
I,
said, "Yeah, I remember you for the Muppet Show?" And she followed me on Twitter, and I'm like, "Wow, that's so freaking cool."
well, no, I had to pull up the Steve Martin episode, and there you go, Steve Martin. You kind of know him.
Wow. Well,
I mean,
I
like that
it's
was Steve Martin, before he was famous,
mhm.
essentially. Maybe he had an album or two out, and now, yeah, a lot of nostalgia going back then.
A ton, and just with that particular show, just how much of a production, was.
Hmm.
Like, you had all these Muppets and one human, and it just worked.
Yeah, yeah. Did you ever get a chance to go to the Muppet exhibit? Whether I don't know how it would have traveled to you, but the Skirball Center out in L.A. had like 6 months. It was a Muppet
Oh,
exhibition, and there you got to kind of a lot of behind the scenes, and it was I think
oh, wow.
that Lisa Henson. I went to the press thing for it, so she was talking and talking about her dad's legacy. But it was again another incredible experience that some of us get to experience once in a while.
That might have been after I left LA, it
Yeah.
figures.
Yeah, I think it's permanently in New York at the Museum of the Moving Image. So
Oh,
there's
okay.
still a chance.
Yeah, I'm not trying to go to Manhattan. I
I
regret
know.
every I regret every single time I have to drive through Manhattan. I'm just like, I can't see that place. But let's talk about Film
Yes.
Thread. My goodness, how do you get involved with Film Thread?
Yeah. Well, my involvement happened like 2017. At that time, I was just, you know, I was part time, just doing movie reviews on my own.
Mhm.
Just trying to become a better writer. If you see a lot of my early stuff, you know what I mean. Um, and so I just decided I'm going to do it and see if I can get an audience or something. Of course, I didn't. But part of doing that was I was able to get to essentially become press, and so I did a bunch of these opportunities. One opportunity was a Futurama event where um,
Oh.
it was a phone app game, and there was this big press event with the cast to promote the game. And I took my friend, and my friend is good friends with Chris Gore, and we happened to run into each other at that event. And Chris was saying, yeah, he had just restarted Film Threat online at that point, so he had been away from Film Threat for almost a decade. He got it back,
Oh,
started
wow.
running it again,
Mhm.
and I just basically told him, oh yeah, I do movie reviews, sent him a bunch of samples, and that's how I joined Film Threat. And then as I was looking at the website and looking at several opportunities, I just basically mentioned to him, hey, if you did this with WordPress, if you did that, You know,
Mm-hmm.
you could I think things could run better. You could get more, and eventually, we were only publishing one review at that time, and I go, well, I got time, and he brought me on, and I was able to basically increase the output of the website. And then so I was running the website, and he was kind of doing the media stuff like the podcasts, all the
Uh-huh.
kind of more visible things. And everything grew from them because we had gotten the website growing, we had gotten the the YouTube and the mostly the podcasts moving along, and we were able to go full force into Sundance. That was kind of my first real big project with Film Thread. So we had about 4 writers at Sundance, and
Mm-hmm.
I was the man in the chair here in LA, and we kind of went guns a blazing to Sundance, and that's how my involvement started to that's how I became more involved with Film Thread at that point, to
Mm-hmm.
where I am now, where I'm the editor in chief, and then Chris is the publisher, and he manages more the business end of things, and I manage the editorial end of things.
Oh, cool. Cool. Yeah, I would not have known about really Film Threat at all until I happened to see Chris Gore when he was on Midnight's Edge. And I'm like,
Uh-huh.
I know that guy. And I'm like, crap, I used to watch this dude on G4. So it was so cool hearing him talk about movies, and he's so gracious, to pop onto the channel, talk theme parks and stuff every now and then. Of course, you are more than welcome to drop in on our theme park podcast on the panel. Please, we would love to have you.
Which one? The Midnight's Edge, or
We do like a theme park geeks and divas podcast.
oh,
I
okay.
was doing it once a month, but now I'm actually ratcheting it up to like twice a month. Chris has an open invite, like
Yeah,
OG Orange Grove 55. He drops on there. Theme Park Casual does.
yeah. I saw the one
Bash
where Chris
does.
and Dante were on it, and
Yeah,
so
huh?
yeah,
We just call it theme park therapy, and we just talk about stuff related to theme parks, no matter, from Disney to, hey, I used to go to this little theme park in Allentown, Pennsylvania called Dorney Park, and Knott's Berry Farm bought it. We would kind of talk about, things like that. We just have a good time
yeah,
just talking theme parks, stuff we like, stuff we don't like, things like that.
yeah.
But
The therapy portion of it.
exactly, exactly. It just kind of happened organically with people just talking about stuff and us just talking about stuff, and it was it's just a great time. But one of the things, running into like Film Thread and how you guys need to focus on indie movies and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
I just found that really fascinating. And speaking of like indie movies, Sundance is one of those things where I always thought it's kind of like where Hollywood goes to shop for that next big, sleeper
Yeah.
hit. So, what is it like actually going to Sundance?
Yeah, I mean, I will tell you, I've only been there once, and it was the Sundance right before lockdown.
Oh boy.
So I went in January of 2020, and then of course everything went crazy in March.
Hmm.
So at that time there was just kind of small talk about what this COVID thing is. Um, so I went there, and you know, it was kind of eye opening. I think a lot of the mysticism of Sundance kind of went away on that trip. Like I was one of our writers couldn't make it. He got the flu at the last minute, and so I took over
Hmm.
his tickets. And he had gotten the tickets to the Eccles Theater, which is the large theater, and that is where Netflix, Amazon, all the big guys put out their films. And so these are big movies. I would say mid-sized movies for a movie
Hmm.
studio to basically show off and bring publicity to it. And it was then I realized, yeah, half of Sundance is driven off of these large films showing up at Sundance, because it draws in press, it
Hmm.
draws in people. The celebrities are there, and so there's access to the big names. Like there was a movie starring Tessa Thompson. I forget the name of it. I think it was Sylvie or something like that.
Hmm.
And so she was there. Fox had put out a Peter Pan movie, which which quite frankly upset me a lot because of, I'm not a big fan of movies that hurt children, and this is a story of Peter Pan. and, um, but at the same time, there is these small indie films that no one here would ever hear of, who
Mm-hmm.
now has a chance to, play alongside the larger films. And to me, that's kind of the benefit of having those big studios there is, these select small movies now have a chance to get some kind of distribution as well. But um, it's, I don't know. I do love indie films, and I felt like then they may be straying off a little bit. This year I'm
Mm.
a little bit more encouraged, but I think this year it just felt like it's evolving into a lot of message movies, as opposed
Mm.
to just telling stories. And there'll be exceptions where it's just a nice pure story, but you definitely feel it when it comes to documentaries and some of your
Mm-hmm.
higher dramas. Yeah. So all that to say is, you know, I think there needs to be a change at Sundance and kind of get back to its roots of really supporting indie filmmakers and supporting indie films.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, we'll see. It could head in the right direction or it could head in the wrong direction. I will say though, I'm more excited about South by Southwest than going there this year than Sundance.
Interesting. Interesting, because South by Southwest has been getting much more press and traction,
Hmm.
more so than Sundance. So that is a shift that I have
Yeah.
noticed.
Well, I
Um,
think I think for South by it's because it's later on in the year.
hmm,
It's also in Texas and not in the snowy climes of Park City, Utah.
true.
Um, and quite frankly, yeah, you know when it comes to meat, I love Texas.
Nobody does barbecue quite like Texas.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's indie films. I think I fell in love with indie films when I saw a little film called Napoleon Dynamite.
Hmm. Yeah, that was Sundance.
That was, I think, the first time I'd ever heard of Sundance at all. It's like, oh, it won at Sundance. I'm like, okay, yeah, whatever. Everybody's talking about this. Let me check it out. Let me watch it. That is one of my absolute favorite movies.
Hmm.
One of my absolute favorite movies. It was a premise no one would really think of, really, and it was just fun to watch. And you love
Yeah,
finding these little, these little films like this. So
yeah. Wasn't that an MTV movie as well?
yes,
Yeah,
MTV Studios, yeah, just
yeah. I
like
mean, it had
Election
that
was.
MTV. Yeah, it had that MTV vibe to it, and
Hmm.
I think that's what a lot. I mean, MTV was popular back then, and and so it was really right there for where America was culturally,
Hmm.
and I think that had a lot to do with its popularity.
Yeah, I agree with you. It was huge, even with the T-shirts that came out. Vote for Pedro. I love that. And of course, it got me back into listening to Jamiroquai as well. This was
Mhm.
back when MTV used to play music videos, kids.
Yeah, at least half of the time.
Yeah, at least half. You had a
Yeah,
couple of other, other things, that they would play. My favorite being Yo MTV Raps, but even still, so still on, I was still music.
yeah,
Uh, do
yeah. I'm
you
trying to
think?
remember.
Oh,
Oh,
sorry. Go
go ahead.
ahead.
No, no, go ahead.
No, I was going to say. I was like, do you think with streaming, do you think that that's something that helps or hurts the indie movie industry?
Yeah, I mean, it helps because it's uh, a, that's how you get your movie out there. You're if you're an indie filmmaker, unless you get bought by someone, you're not going to get theatrical distribution whatsoever. Um, so even with Amazon's probably the easiest. The price structures may not be good, but
Hmm.
um, Amazon, you can get your movie out on that, and and that's the way you're going to be seen. That's, and there's certainly other avenues. Tubi, I think Pluto TV is bringing up a lot of indie filmmakers,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's kind of a necessity at that point. Once in a while, there was a movie, The Mean One, which was it was a horror film based on The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. We had the filmmaker
Oh, wow.
on the Film Threat livecast, which you see right now, and he was just basically talking. He made the movie, and it was interesting enough for Regal Pictures to purchase the film and then put it in Regal theaters they put it in for a week.
Mm-hmm.
It did well, and so they basically, I believe they ran it for at least a month at Regal theaters. So there are stories where you can hit the jackpot and find some big studio distribution. I think Focus Features does that as well. They'll find some indie and
Mm-hmm.
um, and put it out there. Lionsgate does that. Although they tend to look for big names when promoting it. And so yeah, streaming is a necessity. I think the issue there is, if you put if you get distribution on streaming, on a big streaming platform, you're going to have to be the one to promote it. They're not going to do a lot of work for you, but it's out there.
Mm.
So, like I have a friend who's a filmmaker, and he does something interesting. He kind of takes the Kevin Hart model, where every time it plays at a film festival, he has an email sheet, an email list, and he just builds that email list. And he's gotten that list to the point where he can make a movie, send it out, publicize it on his email list, make enough money from that movie to then finance his next movie. Which,
Wow.
I mean, that's you got to get creative out there, But I think it is encouraging for indie filmmakers to be seen finally.
Well, the reason that I bring up indie films and streaming, because if it was not for streaming, there was this one indie movie that I probably never would have bothered seeing, even when Chris Gore was singing its praises, and that is RRR.
Yes.
Now, where I live, I'm surprised they didn't keep it longer in theaters because Orlando is like a big tourist market. Apparently, it was here and then disappeared.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I can't see it in the theater. Okay, whatever. I'm not going to be bothered about it. And then someone tells me, oh, yeah, it's on Netflix. Really? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, oh, okay. All right. Netflix. All right, fine. Maybe it's good for popcorn, whatever. I watch it, and it is no understatement. It is one of the best movies I have seen in a long time. I could not believe 3 hours had
Yeah.
passed. 3 hours. I'm just like, you've got to be kidding me. There's not more to this. And I mean, it's just like time just kept flying by because I was
It's
so
packed.
engrossed in the story. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's like it's packed. It's just a great story because myself and her a positive fandom, we actually did a live watch party of that film, and people are telling us you're not ready for the you're not ready for the party scene. We're like, really? I mean, how good could it actually be?
Why?
And
See, I remember you two doing that because the day you did that, the evening you did that, I was at the Directors Guild about to watch RRR with the director and with NTR Jr. And I was like, wow,
oh
yeah,
wow.
it was that day because I know you saw the photo of me and
Yes,
NTR.
I did.
Yeah, it was that time. It was like, oh man, if there's some way where I could just get them to, if you were streaming, just kind of slip a video message from them to you, but couldn't make that work. But
Oh man. Oh, I appreciate you thinking about it because we would have flipped out.
yeah, but I mean, that movie, that one just caught us off guard. I mean, it came to the theater. One of Chris's friends had seen it and told Chris to go see it. So he saw that the following week, and then Chris tells me I need to see it, and so then I saw it the following week, and it was like, oh my gosh, this movie, this is the action movie that we haven't seen come out of Hollywood in years. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it was just pure action with no. Okay, there was an agenda. It was British colonization. The British were the bad guys in this movie. But the over the top violence, the over the top stunts, the aggressive use of CG animals,
Yeah, yeah.
the length, the violence. It's like, you know, why is Hollywood not making movies like this anymore? These big epics, and
Yes.
and we just got at that point, you know, we had just started streaming YouTube live, and this was kind of the first movie that got us attention, got us an audience, just really spiked our numbers at that point, and we just kind of rode it from there. And you know, if you know Chris, he talks about it almost all the time. Um,
Yes.
and there's a rare live cast where we don't mention RRR. And then to kind of cap it off with that night at the Directors Guild to meet SS Rajamouli and NTR Jr. And just to talk about the kind of adventure, and on top of that, the fact that now it's heading into award season, and it at least has best song at the Academy Awards this year,
Mm-hmm.
and to me it was like that's the only hope that the Academy Awards has of boost of attracting an audience is if they do a full dance number of Natu Natu with Ram and NTR. That will be the spotlight, the highlight of this year's Oscars if they're smart and if they do that. Otherwise, it's just gonna be a very boring Oscar season.
Yeah.
But it's it was just kind of fun being on the RRR bandwagon early, and and to see just how much this movie grew, and on top of that, one of the things they were asked, SS Rajamouli was asked at the Q&A afterwards was, did you expect this? And he was like, we made this movie for India and for Indians, and maybe for a few people outside of it, but they, in their wildest dreams, never imagined how wide of an audience and notoriety it would get in the United States, and the fact that they could come to the U.S. and talk about talk about a movie they made when they normally come to the U.S. just to vacation. Yeah.
How interesting. Wow. This film, whenever we did our first watch party about it, and we just kept marveling at everything that we saw. Even again, the CGI with all
Uh-huh.
the animals coming out of the truck, because we did not expect, spoiler in case you haven't seen it, you see it by now. All of those animals coming out of the truck. We were just dumbfounded so much that we kept talking about it through other portions
Yeah.
of the film. And we had people in the audience, who were Indian, either if they were in India or they were abroad or whatever. They were just like, we are just so happy others love this movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's like finding out that Americans are just like, this movie is great. I'm telling this friend, this
Yeah.
friend, this friend, to watch it. And it's just something else. And I'm just
Yeah.
so excited about this film. Again, if they're smart, they'll let
Yeah.
them perform
They'll
not
make
to
it the
numbers.
centerpiece of the Oscars. It needs to be big, and it needs to be energetic, and it needs to be a hell of a lot of fun. And you know, that's in light of slapping someone, this is the thing that I think will bring numbers to the Oscars that it so desperately needs.
Oh yeah, because I didn't even care
Yeah.
about the Golden Globes at all
Yeah.
until I heard RRR got nominated for some stuff. I'm like, okay, now you
Yeah.
have my attention.
Yeah. Then yeah, the Q&A was also fascinating because they talked about how they made it. They said they shot for 322 days. Uh, so they locked up everyone for at least a year, for almost a year. And part of it, the reason is, believe it or not, they didn't have a lot of money, and so they only had a single
Ooh.
camera. So every shot you see is off of the same camera. Yeah,
Wow.
and then COVID happened. I think that messed up the schedule a bit, but a lot of COVID was spent in the editing and the
Hmm.
graphics department at that point. And then yeah, and then there you go. They produced it. They got out in at least Indian theaters at that time. Yeah,
Wow.
it's just yeah, because I think what I love most about it is just the epic feel to it. The largeness of this movie.
Hmm.
To see thousands of extras. Literally, I mean, there's no computers there. Those were people. Those thousands of people were actually thousands of people. And so, we just don't make movies like this anymore.
No, it reminds me of like one of my favorite movies that I have on Blu-ray is the Ten Commandments.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the advertising lines is casts of thousands. And it's like, what's a cast of thousands going to look like? But that was always something that hyped up the movie. And you had all these people. And I remember seeing the first musical number that they did in RRR. And I said, if this is CGI, I'm going to be really disappointed. And one of the Indian viewers was just like, no, that's just
Yeah.
people. That's all people. I said, good, because the
Well, the
way,
animals were CGI.
yeah, the animals were
And,
definitely CGI.
NTR
That,
talked about that scene you mentioned on the
yeah.
cages. He was there by himself on top of a cage on top of a truck, and he did his thing. And he talked about not seeing the result of that until he finally saw the movie. And
What did he think?
oh, he was like blown away. I mean, that's the one thing that you got out of this Q&A is that the people who made it they're a family. They love each other. They'll die for each other. I
Mm,
mean, NTR and Ram literally almost died for this movie, and so there's this joy of filmmaking you get across, and then afterwards you just realize I just hope Hollywood never gets a hold of these guys, because they will break their spirits. I hope Marvel never gets them to make a Marvel movie, because I think it'll break their spirit, and we need movies where you just get that sense of fun, the joy of filmmaking from it, and not and get away from the business of filmmaking.
mhm. It's funny you should mention that because I think on Twitter, I think it was an interview with Variety of them on the red carpet, and I think it was
Mm.
with
Probably Golden Globe.
NTR.
Yeah.
And they asked him like, "Oh, would you like to do a Marvel movie?" And of course, he says like, it'd be an honor to. And I'm on Twitter saying, "Marvel does not deserve you. Run in the opposite direction." And I had so many followers from India who are just like, "Yeah, we've
Yeah.
seen Marvel movies. No, just don't." And it's like I'm glad Hollywood is taking notice of SS Rajamouli, but kind of
Mhm.
like you, I feel he has such that love of filmmaking. When
Mhm.
I'm watching RRR, I'm just like, is he a fan of like Spielberg and other really great directors? Because you could see certain, things
Yeah.
going on, especially with this camera work, with how the story is told, with how the shots are set up. We're just like, this is amazing. And every time that I've seen him, he's very passionate about filmmaking
Mhm.
and just the joy of telling a story. And I actually happened to see him, I guess, I think a press junket that they did in Mumbai for a film called Brahmastra.
Oh yeah.
And I think there seemed to be at least I kind of picked up that there was a little bit of tension about why is it that SS Rajamouli should be involved with this Bollywood film. And Rajamouli was basically like, the door is open where there's so many people, not even from India, who want to see our filmmaking. So he's like, I want to support this film at the same time. And I think Ayan Mukherjee, I probably said that wrong, who Ramastra was his film. I think Rajamouli gave him some notes about kind of tightening up the story, which it seems like he really took to heart. So
Yeah.
I'm just like, how cool was it meeting Rajamouli and just kind of getting a sense from him what type of filmmaker that he is, and most importantly, did he talk about anything for the future?
Yeah. He didn't really talk about the future. I think, I mean, like I said, 322 days. That's, you know, I
Crazy.
the sense I get is they're working on stuff because we did ask him the sequel question,
Hmm.
and I'm like, personally, it was like, they're like, when we asked about the sequel, it was like, they're hemming and hawing, and I basically go, what was it? It was, I'm trying to remember exactly what I said, but I said, yeah, oh yeah, have there been talks about a sequel? And they're hemming and hawing. Go, yeah, there have been talks, but I can't imagine that movie having a sequel. And I think that's another trap filmmakers fall into. You have success, and now you're expected to duplicate or build upon that success, as opposed to why not tell another story? Like he did Bahubali.
That's just what
Um,
I was gonna say.
yeah,
Bahubali 1 and 2.
yeah. I think there's something admirable about saying, no, I've got a different story I want to tell, and to not fall in that Hollywood trap of, yeah. And this is the problem with Hollywood, is they're risk averse, and so that's why they
Hmm.
do adaptations, because there's at least a bit of success and knowledge of the property, and so they'll make a movie based on a book or whatever, an old
Hmm.
television show. But you rarely ever see anything original coming out of Hollywood, and you have to admire the filmmakers who'll say, no, I'm going to do something original. I'm going to tell another story, and if it means I'm not going to get Hollywood support behind it, or a big budget behind it, I'll find another way of doing it. And I
Hmm.
think that's, again, there's probably issues of greed there if you're trying to milk a franchise, and then there's says something about art if you're just like, no, let's tell a different story now.
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's just like it's like I'm tired of the remakes, whatever happened, the
Mhm.
movies where maybe they didn't do so great in the theater, but it was something different, and some of them
Yeah.
find new life on physical media, or like word of mouth. Like there was a film that I saw called, again, another recommendation from Chris Gore. I was going to pass over it, but he told me about it, which is The Black Phone.
Oh yeah.
And I was just like, I cannot believe how engrossing this story
Hmm.
is. It was just, there was stuff that I missed right in plain sight. I could not
Yeah.
believe it. I said, that's a good darn movie. And it was something different.
Yeah. Well, and,
And
and the Black Phone comes from the director of Doctor Strange, and he didn't do the second Doctor Strange, and I think he wanted to do Black Phone instead. And you get it.
smart move, because
Yeah.
I liked the first Doctor Strange. The second one, poor Sam Raimi. That's all I'm
Yeah. I
saying.
was like, I know it's controversial, but I like the second the second Doctor Strange. It was, I'm a lot more forgiving of the issues, but I understand why people didn't like it.
It's just, Lord, I was so disappointed. I was just so
Yeah.
disappointed.
Yeah. I think the reason I like it is because like people always point out all the cameos, and I'm like, well, the reality is they weren't going to fully develop any of those anyways, and it's kind of nice to see Patrick Stewart back, and um,
It
Get the
was.
John Krasinski
Yeah, and John
reference.
Krasinski. It was
Yeah.
good to see that. It was good to see like Charlie Cox, it was good. But I didn't
Even
really
Black
know
Bolt.
of
To
him.
see Black Bolt again.
Yeah. Yeah, even Black Bolt. I mean, I wasn't the cameos didn't really bother me that much. Like the biggest cameo, I would say, and not even turned out to not even really be a cameo. It was more of like, hey, Andrew Garfield, are you in the new Spider-Man movie? Well, people keep asking me that. We're like, he's totally in the movie. He's totally in the movie.
Yeah.
And then I'm in the theater watching Spider-Man No Way Home because I'm just like, you know what? If this turns out to be true, I want to say I was there when it happened. And sure enough, you see Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man. I'm like, and then
And
you saw
the
Andrew
entrance was perfect.
Garfield. It
Yeah.
was perfect. It was
Yeah.
absolutely perfect. It was so subtle, literally in the back of my head. I'm like, that I don't think
Yeah.
that was
See,
I don't think that was it. Fight scene.
that's the storytelling you miss. Because just the entrances, the first appearance of both Andrew and Toby,
Hmm.
they just nailed it. They knew how to milk the audience for all the sentimentality they possibly could, and they did it. And we keep saying, well, that was the Sony Marvel movie. That's why it was good. And it's like, yeah, you're probably right. Sony seems to have the handle on this at the moment.
Hmm.
How to tell a good Marvel movie.
Yeah. I mean, I was like, I don't know, 'cause like I said, I was not happy with the second Doctor Strange movie, but I went and saw this, and I was like, I thoroughly
Yeah.
enjoyed it. I mean, Andrew Garfield, I didn't know anything about him because, as far as I was concerned, and I still am concerned, Tobey Maguire is my Spider-Man. But I saw him, I'm like, okay, I see why you
Mhm.
guys like him. So I may go back and watch his movies. But those were cameos done right,
Yeah.
and absolutely loved them. So for the last question, what do you think the box office is going to be like this year? Do you think that
Mhm.
there are enough movies out there that people are actually interested in seeing this year?
Yeah. I take a different perspective on that question. Because there's lessons to be learned in 2022. And the first is the money is there. People want to see
Mm,
movies. Uh, just the fact that Top Gun Maverick and Avatar: The Way of Water, just the fact that they made as much money as they did, just
mhm,
shows you that the money is there. You know, and it
mhm,
all comes down to quality. If you tell a good story, if you tell a story that appeals to a very broad audience, we will come out, we will see your movie. And I think the problem with last year being the lowest box office earners was the quality of the movies that came out last year. Part of that I will say is COVID related in the sense that
mhm,
this is they're still there. The ability to make movies because of COVID, and the quality of the movies because of COVID, and the fact that Hollywood was shut down for a year and a half before they started really making movies again, speaks to the number and the quality of the movies that came out.
mhm,
Um, I'll speak to Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. That was a COVID movie. If you watch that movie, you see that people are grouped in small groups and they're all 6 feet apart.
mhm,
And the sets that they built were they look like they were hermetically sealed. And so you really do get a sense that what was missing was the grandness of Wakanda
mm,
that you got from the first movie.
right.
And I think that played into, I mean, we could talk about the story, but it played into the look of Wakanda Forever and why it fell short of the original. Um, and so I think, and and also I think Warner Brothers, Universal, they realized how bad movies they didn't put out a lot of movies last year, and I think a lot of that had to do with the quality of the movies they had, and that they
Mhm.
weren't willing to put the budget into to advertising it. Disney Strange World, there was zero advertising.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about that movie at all.
Yeah, so they decided to just throw it in the theater because they knew how bad it was. So they just threw it in the theater, decided to spend no money on advertising to save that money and see if what they can recoup as a result of it. And
Mm-hmm.
even Lightyear failed miserably because they
Oh, that was I.
yeah
Oh, I just said how.
yeah
Here's my thing. I was just like, kids aren't stupid.
hmm
They know Buzz Lightyear as Tim Allen.
yeah
You're gonna make him Chris Evans now?
hmm
Really?
yeah yeah. And so the bigger point is the money is there, and if you put out a good movie, people will flock to see your movie, and they'll spend that money. They could have easily taken money away from Avatar and Top Gun and put it into a good movie. In terms of box office, we would have seen Avatar and Top Gun less in order to see a good movie, um, and uh, and so I have to believe that 2023, the success of it, will be based on the actual movies that come out. I'm not excited about things. I think Guardians 3 is the Marvel movie I'm excited about. I think
Mm-hmm.
Creed 3 is another movie I'm excited to see.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. Oh, and Dune, the second Dune. Those are the three movies off the top of my head that I'm looking forward to see this year. Everything else, it's kind of like, well, they've screwed these things up in the past. There's, Quantum Mania. I couldn't tell you. It feels like it's not going in the right direction. Uh, and I think people are feeling that way. And I think
Mm-hmm.
people are feeling that way about other the big movies coming out next year as well. So we'll
Mm-hmm.
see. But the money's there, and studios, they want to make money. That's their whole job. And you would think they would put more effort into it, and they're just not for some reason.
It's a darn shame. It's like I tell people, one movie that I'm looking forward to for all kinds of nostalgic reasons is the Super Mario Brothers movie. That movie is gonna make a crap ton of
Oh,
money.
oh,
And
even without an
absolutely,
Italian accent.
yes, people don't care. It's like, oh, that sounds exactly like the video game. I can't wait to play. I can't wait to watch that movie.
Yeah,
It's
I mean, I hate to say it, but when you don't hear that Italian accent, you're not going to care as you go down as the movie keeps playing on. You'll just get
no,
used to it.
you're really not. You're
Yeah,
just like Italian accent. Hey, do they have the
yeah,
sound effects right? That's
yeah.
that's pretty much what
And
I
Chris
care about.
Pratt made a generic Lego toy sound really good. So he's
Yes,
got the skills to do it.
that he does indeed. Well, Alan, it has been an absolute blast talking to you. So
Yeah,
thank you so
thanks for
much
having me.
for appearing on my channel. You are more than welcome. Got an open invitation to pop on the channel
Well,
anytime.
thanks.
Folks, please do go check out Film Threat. I have the link to the YouTube channel in the description. Also, a link to Alan's Instagram, so you can also follow him on Instagram as well. So, Alan, any last thoughts before we wrap up?
Oh no, this was fun. I enjoy talking about uh, theme parks and movies, and so yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh, you're very
Yeah, we don't talk
welcome.
about theme parks on the Film Thread live chat.
I'm gonna have to have you drop on the theme park channel,
Yeah,
theme park streams, and we can talk.
yeah. I
We
could I
can
could
talk theme
I could
parks.
speak to the golden age of theme parks because I was there. I was there when Disneyland was fun to go to, and they loved pass holders at that time.
Hmm. That's one of the things we talk about at theme park therapy. Remember when?
Yeah.
Remember when it was great? I'm like, yeah. Remember when you used to be able to go back to the Dole Whip machine
Mhm.
and fill up your Dole Whip all by yourself?
Yeah.
Not anymore. I'm surprised there. Well, Alan, again, thank you so
Yeah.
much for
Thank you.
joining me on the show. Folks, please do subscribe to Film Threat on YouTube. Please do follow Alan on Instagram. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time. Bye.